Tony, welcome to Honor Cafe Hall of Heroes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Was breakfast good?
It was awesome.
People don't understand how good the food is.
Yeah. If you love home style cooking, it was awesome.
So, you were a Marine.
That's true. I was in the Marine Corps.
Why the Marines?
My brother was already in the Army, and I wanted to do something different, and that's just how it happened.
Where are you from?
I'm from. I was born in Houston. I grew up a little bit in Cleveland, Texas, and then I moved to Marshall, Texas, where I was raised, pretty much.
So, you're a Texas veteran, then. You enlisted when you were Texas.
Absolutely.
That helps.
That does help. There are a lot of people in the military from Texas, definitely in the Marine Corps, a lot of Texans.
And it helps with school, too, because...
That's true. Was able to use the GI Bill, and now I'm on the Hazelwood Act. So,
nice.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Where are you going to school?
I'm going to school at Sam Houston State University. I'm in the nursing program.
Awesome. What year are you in that?
I'm 3 out of 5 semesters, and it would be called J2 for second semester of my junior year.
How is that? What's that like?
It's stressful, but it's worth it. It's going to be worth it.
I heard they have a good program.
Yeah, they've got some good professors over there. Specifically this guy Rob Harmon.
Really?
Yeah, he's awesome.
I need to meet this guy.
Yeah, he's good to go.
Yeah. So, you raised in Marshall, Texas.
Yes, sir.
What year did you go in the military?
So I went into the military in 2003. I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened, and basically that sort of started it. I was in school a year ahead because when I was a little kid, I was in private school. When I went to public school, I was moved a year ahead. So when 9/11 happened, I was 16. And that February of 2002, I joined on my 17th birthday.
You went to, where did you go for basic?
I went to MCRD in San Diego.
San Diego. And what was your MOS?
0311, infantry rifleman.
Infantry rifleman.
So that's as good as it gets.
Yeah, it is as good as it gets. And Chris Sadler would say that's as good as it gets.
That's it.
So what unit were you assigned to?
1st Battalion, 1st Marines out of Camp Pendleton.
And when was your first deployment?
It would have been early 2003. The Iraq invasion was March of 2003, and it was right around then.
And General Hummer was one of the commanding generals from that.
Right.
And so you would have been either under Mattis or Hummer's command.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. You'll get a chance to meet him here at some point. It's a
nice.
Really neat guy. So when you think about war and you think about deploying, you have one idea in your mind, but what was different as far as what you expected and then what it was really like?
Well, when you go into the Marine Corps as a young guy in the infantry, you're definitely wanting to do your job and go do what you're supposed to do. But 20 years later, you definitely have some time to think, and it lasted longer than I thought it would. I know that sounds stupid. Of course, I can watch videos of older veterans, and it's clearly a lifelong, thing, a struggle.
Yeah.
But when you're young, you think that, oh, no big deal. Let's go we want to go do this. And then now, 20 years later, it's like, wow, that's going to last a lifetime, I think.
Yeah, it does last a lifetime. Where were you in the invasion force?
I was worked down south in the Basra area with the British.
Okay. How was that, working with the British?
It was interesting. We did a lot of trading food and trading clothes. And
it's nasty.
It was pretty nasty. Yeah, it was pretty nasty. And I mean, that's saying something since we were eating MREs all the time. But it's something different.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. We worked sort of the rivers and did shipboarding and kind of weird stuff.
How many deployments did you have?
I did 3 deployments.
So, what was your most significant deployment?
My most significant deployment was to a town, oddly enough, called Karma, Iraq, and that was my 3rd and last deployment.
What happened on that deployment?
That deployment was really rough. I think it was the most violent city in Iraq at the time in the world, and it was just really rough. Stuff was going on every day. Fast tempo, constant patrol, standing post, and I was wounded at the end.
How were you wounded?
I took a lot of shrapnel from a mortar round.
Wow. Uh, so where did they send you? And where were you?
So I got hit, and I was I was still conscious. Luckily, there were some helos in the air nearby, and in my mind, I can't remember if it was a Huey or a Black Hawk. I've heard either. I picture a Black Hawk. I think it was a Black Hawk, and so it was the Army that picked me up. And I went into shock, and I got loaded on this helo, and I went. They flew me to Camp Fallujah, and that's where I blacked out. And so I had surgeries at Camp Fallujah, and they stabilized me. They hopped me to Balad. I had more surgery. I wasn't around for any of this. Stabilized me again, hopped me to Germany, and worked on me there. And basically, they called my family and said, we're gonna try to hop him across, and we don't really know if he'll make it. And so I did. And I landed at the National Naval Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland, is where I was.
And you were there for quite a
I
while.
was there for several months.
Were you conscious during the trip across the pond?
I wasn't. I was conscious while I was wounded. The pain was terrible. I went into shock about the time they loaded me onto a Humvee to take me to the LZ to get on a helo. I was in shock, but conscious, and I didn't black out until they had me laid on a stretcher outside Camp Fallujah, and they were trying to take all my gear off. And I really wanted to help, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't talk. I couldn't move, and they were just, it was kind of like fading back into myself. On my end, I was dying. I'd done the terrible pain. I was now in shock. It was like a dream. I was fading back into myself, I guess is what I would say. And they were trying to get my gear off, and I was thinking I really wanted to, because it was my own personal gear, and I really wanted to help them. And they finally got it off. They picked me up on a stretcher into the medical building. They started to round a corner. That was it. I don't remember anything of anything there. Balad, Germany, any of that. I woke up in Maryland.
Was your family there?
My family was there, which was confusing because my last memory was I was in Iraq. How is my family in Iraq? I had no idea I was in the States. I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
I was intubated, but I didn't know that. I just knew I couldn't talk, and I had no idea that, I was intubated, and I was safe in the States, so I had a rough time. I got ICU psychosis or delirium, and it was about 2 weeks long. I thought that everyone was trying to kill me. I had no idea where I was.
Wow. So when you finally pulled the tube out your throat and you could talk, how you were in the hospital? How long were you?
I was inpatient for about 3 months in Bethesda.
Yeah, and then so they finally pulled out the tube, and your wife was there, I think.
We weren't married yet, but my mom was there. My brother was there, who was in the Army, and some family were there.
Yeah.
And it was a crazy time. I had no idea what was going on. I'm just going to rattle off a couple of things just because it's so weird. I thought that I had come into the hospital wearing an Iraqi uniform, and I thought that everyone at the hospital was trying to kill me, that they thought I was an insurgent. And so I would see the doctor walking around with a machine gun out in the hallway talking about, hey, let's try to kill this guy. Or I would see written on the wall, you're going to effing die. Or all kinds of stuff. I thought I was in this big rotating death Rubik's Cube because I'd seen a sci-fi movie called The Cube before I went on deployment.
Yeah.
So I thought I was in this death cube, and these nurses were trying to get me out, and my wife thinks I was maybe having ECMO, and my bed was maybe getting rotated around. Yeah. And I thought my boys were coming to rescue me. I thought I had a nurse that rolled me over, and she had never seen this big scar on my back, and she said, whoa, what's this from? And immediately I had a hallucination that one of my nurses, whose name was Ibrahim, I thought he had sewn a bomb into my side, and so I caused a huge ruckus in the hospital, and they searched his locker, and I thought he had a radio. I mean, I lived this. The best way I can describe it is and I think most people have had an experience like this where, say, you have a dream about your significant other, they cheated on you,
Yeah.
but they're in bed next to you. So when you wake up, you know 100% that's not true, but it's still, it did some sort of physiological thing in your body. And so living through those hallucinations I went through that.
So, that's really interesting because, most people equate the struggles that veterans have with, the actual combat, what you see in combat, being wounded, but it really gets ramped up with this real thing, which is ICU psychosis, which most people have if they're in ICU more than a week, and that's where you lose track of time, and day, and space, and all these things, and especially when you're under sedation, and it is real, and the problem with it being so real is you remember it.
Right.
Yeah.
It was crazy, and I think about it a lot, and those are just a few of the hallucinations. But since I'm a nursing student and I have my professor here, going to relate a few things. But one of the things they did was they were trying to check my levels of consciousness, right? So they came in and they wanted to ask me after they pulled the tube, what date is it? And somebody asked me what date it is, and immediately I got mad because I thought they think I don't know, when it is.
Yeah.
And I started to, oh yeah, it's hold on now, it's I couldn't, and I got mad, I got angry because the nurse was like, oh, it's okay, we'll be back. And I was like, no, I know when it is, and it was just a weird feeling.
You lose track of so much time. A lot of people don't know that, awareness, we have operative awareness, is a lot of times in trauma because you're not sedated enough. So you may be blacked out, but a lot of times you're here and there's things going on that you're actually subconsciously remembering, and you don't remember in real time. So that adds to that whole trauma and so many things that we're still discovering, about this whole thing of PTSD and the scars that so many people carry. And you've got real scars and scars.
Absolutely. And
what were the injuries?
So I lost my right kidney, I lost my spleen, I had I think it was around 40% of my liver taken off. Big piece flew through my rib cage and fractured my ribs, punched a hole through my diaphragm, and then I had a hemopneumothorax. I almost lost my left leg above the knee. I have muscle out of my right leg. I don't really know it got hit. And then I have a lot of peppering in my left hand. My thumb was fractured, and a lot of internal injuries.
Yeah, it is a miracle you're here. I think that is literally a miracle. Did you was there ever any connection back to your unit, like after you started to figure out where you were and everything was what happened with that?
Absolutely. They were always on my mind. They were still overseas. Several guys, I wasn't the only guy wounded that day, and several of my guys were on that unit. And while I was there, several more came there. And so that was always on my mind. And I would get calls. I would get calls about my guys who were killed while I was there, and that was hard.
Yeah.
But
because you were responsible for them.
Right.
And they within, just because you weren't on the ground with them, you felt that responsibility. Because once you're responsible for them, you're
sure.
always responsible.
So my mom thought that maybe I shouldn't get those calls, but I needed to know that. So they were still at it overseas.
Was your soon-to-be wife, was she a nurse at that time?
She was not a nurse at that time.
So she didn't realize how bad it was till she probably got into it.
Right.
And she's like, I can't believe you survived that.
Absolutely. If she reads my medical records, it's like, this is insane.
Yeah. And so she became a nurse, and you became a teacher.
I became a teacher. I was a high school science teacher, and I loved teaching the kids. It was tough, but
I can't imagine. You're a hardcore Marine, then all of a sudden you're like a high school science teacher. But that's the way it was in World War II. In World War II, those guys came back and they became teachers, high school teachers. My high school coaches were both World War II veterans that were Marines, And they were my football, wrestling, history coaches.
I mean, there's something to it.
Yeah.
And I had to bring it into the classroom here and there, just a little bit, bring a little bit of the Marine Corps into the classroom for some rowdy high school students. You never know, but
how
they
was
loved it. It was cool. I mean, once the kids sort of find that out, that wasn't something. This story is not something I really put out there, but over time they sort of get a little piece here and there, and they put it together, and it means something to them.
Yeah. How I mean, we need more teachers, and I'm glad what you're doing. But how long did you teach?
I taught for about 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Then it was enough.
That was enough. Teaching changed throughout COVID, and yeah, it was enough.
Hopefully, it's on back to a trajectory of education instead of the craziness we saw for a while now.
I hope so.
Fortunately, we don't deal with that at our university. Thank God.
Right. That's good.
But for those that don't know, that Sam is a great university, and it's you don't see any of the craziness.
No. It's been awesome. Been able to just relax and yeah.
And so your wife was a nurse, so you just decided like, okay, another change in career, your third career.
Yeah. It's, my first time I thought I wanted to be a nurse was when I was in the hospital, and I said it. I verbalized it there, and I said I want to be a nurse. But when you get out, I just kind of let life take whatever direction that it took.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming full circle now, 20 years later. Owning up to what I said that I wanted to do.
I think you're probably the perfect age to do it. People need to be older going into the profession because younger people don't know what they're getting into. But when you think back to your experience, it was those ICU nurses that were taking care of you. Doctors don't do a lot of taking care of patients in hospitals.
Absolutely.
They do these drive-bys, but it's the nurses that are there every minute through your freaking out, keeping you sedated, trying to keep you stabilized and all of that.
Absolutely. I'll always remember them. Yeah. And I put them in the ICU. I put them through hell. With all those hallucinations and getting that guy's locker searched, like that happened. And so yeah, they were champs.
They're used to it though. That's what
I guess. I guess so. It was just so wild, and it was tough. I'll tell you another one of the struggles I had was my stomach was open to the air for so long that it quit working. And so first they tried to feed me through my nose, and I had it go into my stomach, and I would throw up. So then they tried to push it a little past. I would throw up, and then so I had to get on TPN, and I lost so much weight. But one of my major struggles being on that was I could not drink water, and so the only thing I could do, as of course, they get a sponge, and I would have dreams every night where I was just searching for water. And, at the end of the dream, I would find like a goblet with like spider webs, or I would find a dry creek bed, and I would wake up and my mouth would be so dry.
Yeah.
And that was tough. That was hard.
Yeah, mouth care is like one of the most underrated things in healthcare, and nurses are great, but they're really bad sometimes. It's keeping taking care of mouth, and we've talked about that.
My wife gets amped at that. That's a big thing that she believes in too. Mouth care, and when I tell her that I had great care there, but of course my mouth wasn't the number one priority, but she'll get amped, and she's a big believer in that.
What type of nurse do you think you want to be?
I don't know. I'm finding out right now. So I did a clinical last week, and I would have never said OR was something that I thought, no, there's zero chance, I would want to do that. But last week I had a clinical where I went straight into the OR, and it was kind of like, okay, this is okay.
Be careful. You might end up, going into anesthesia or something.
But hey, that's all right. That's all right.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's a good gig.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard.
You've got to struggle with the Navy because, you and I are not fans of who was the defense secretary at that time,
right.
And he did some things that were not we're not happy with, right?
Right.
And then, so tell us about your struggles, that how you got the discharge and what you're dealing with in the Navy right now.
Absolutely. So I was wounded in April of 2006. My EAS was July of 2006. And so I hit my EAS about the end of my hospital stay. But the Marine Corps extended me because I still had a JP draining off my liver. And so they extended my contract until that came out, which was November, so about 4 or 5 months. But the issue is I should have been medically retired. Um, I've met so many people that were medically retired, even guys that were wounded with me, but because they had more time on their contracts, they got retired. But it was easy for the Marine Corps, because I was past my EAS, to just say, all right. And that's what they did. Once that they pulled that tube, literally, just even after all that. So as the years went by, I started to learn that people had gotten retired and they had TRICARE and they had all these awesome benefits. And so I went through the process several times with different people and just stonewall each time. So finally, I had my paperwork submitted to the Naval Board of Corrections. And this is many years process. They denied me. They sent me a letter. And their reasoning for the denial was they say I was wounded in 2003 and I stayed in until 2006, 3 years, so therefore I must have been fit for duty. Well, I was not wounded in 2003. I was wounded in 2006, 3 months before my EAS. That all happened 3 months before my EAS. So the Naval Board of Corrections lied, and they said that I was wounded in 2003, not in 2006. I have every bit of documentation to prove that wrong.
Yeah.
I have my date on my Purple Heart. I have other things with dates. I was in the Houston Chronicle. I mean, I have stacks of medical records that say I was wounded in 2006. It was a lie. I don't know.
Somebody didn't even read your
Someone
record.
didn't read anything, and it makes me mad.
Well, I know anything about the Honor Cafe and the connections that happen here. I have a high confidence that this is not over and this can be corrected.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's something we're going to work on, and that's what we do up here at the Honor Cafe. It's more than a place to come eat. It's more a place where people sit down in the local community and tell their stories. It is a place where we get things done, and we get things done, even at a local level, at a state level, and in a level, at a federal level, because just this morning we had breakfast with a lot of the leaders of the community. So that's what's special about this place, and I really appreciate you telling your story, because this is not a podcast. This is a place for local people, local Texans, to come in and to share their stories, so that the community can know all the stories of the veterans that we have here. Anything else you want to say?
No, Colonel Harmon, I think that's it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I really appreciate you sitting down and telling your story, and telling about your guys and giving them a shout out. And I know it's difficult, especially when you think and you carry with you all the guys that you lost. Do you ever keep up with any of them still?
All the time. All the time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I see them whenever I can. I talk to some of them every week.
Yeah.
So all the time. That's my family. That's my family.
They are. And it's good that you don't isolate, and it's good that you keep up with them, because that's part of it. They will be your family forever.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's good. I'm glad you do that, because they need to be kept up with as well. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
They really do. Well, Tony, welcome home.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for coming to our cafe. Can't believe it's your first time here.
I know, but it's awesome.
It is pretty amazing, and I know you'll be back. But thanks for coming on our Cafe Hall of Heroes, and thank you for what you're doing and going to continue to do for veterans.
Absolutely.
All
Thanks,
right.
Colonel Harmon. Appreciate it.